All right, well, welcome to the Ace Show, everyone. I'm so excited. I guess this is number five in the series. The late, great Zig Ziglar says, he says that you can have everything in life you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want. And that's what this is about, really. I want to help with this Ace Show. I want to help professionals succeed and thrive both personally and professionally. And I get a really great reward because I get to talk to people like Ron here, where we can showcase experts, or what I call aces, in their field and leverage that knowledge to support this entire community, you all. And so I get to introduce you to a good friend of mine I've known for quite some time. Oh, I don't even know, 30 years at least, yeah. Right? Ron Alford, who is currently the senior partner and VP of recruiting for Southwestern Consulting. Now, one thing that's rare is Ron is the type of person, he's stuck with the same family of companies for 30 plus years. Mm-hmm. And he started, for those of you who have swung a sample case or who started as sales and worked your way up, Ron literally is the epitome of someone who worked from the bottom and got to the top. From being started as a sales rep to a field sales manager to a district sales manager to the regional sales director, and now here as senior partner for Southwestern Consulting. I mean, this is just quite a path for you, Ron. Author of the Amazon best-selling #1 book here in the category of business mentoring and coaching, Redefining Possible. I got it here. It actually has a nice little home in my small collection of books over there. I keep it. One, because Ron, I love you and you're my buddy and I like to have that up there, but also it's got such good stuff that hopefully we'll talk a little bit about. Husband, father of 2 boys and a beautiful girl. One of the many things I admire about Ron that maybe we'll have some time to talk a little bit about is your discipline, and additionally your ability to balance both your business and your business and your personal life. And you do it with such excellence, with this kind of excellence mindset, which I just think is really awesome. Fun fact, for those of you who are distance runners or those who like long distance exercises or events, Ron, I don't know, this is probably about 5-6 years ago, completed the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim, which is like a 42 miles out and back challenge. And so talk about someone who takes on challenges and just goes for it. If we've got time, we can talk a little bit about that too. Another fun fact, Ron and I are in the same fantasy football league. For those of you who follow fantasy football, we've been doing it for 20 years together at least. Ron is he has, like, as far as records, Ron is #1 with the best record cumulative over those 20 years. I'm somewhere in the middle. And he also has one of the most wins for championships. So for those of you, we're talking about a person who excels in so many things, and he's so competitive.
Can't play real football, but I can sure play that fantasy football.
Yeah, right. Well, I think we've all maybe got a little bit past that in our age now. But be prepared, everyone, for some fresh perspective. Be open and willing to learn. I hope this is going to be valuable. I know it will. And I want you just to think about how the ideas and strategies that Ron and we're going to talk about can be applied to you and your own brand and your own business and your own personal life, and looking for ways to improve it. And so, Ron, thanks again for being here. I'm so glad you're here. I guess maybe just let's start by telling us a little bit about how you got to where you are now, right? As the senior partner, executive coach, responsible for finding and recruiting the talent at Southwestern Consulting. Like, how did you get there? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man, David, thanks for having me on here, brother. I've been looking forward to this. I'd like to say I had some amazing vision when I was young and just, followed this incredible, inspiring path. But, honestly, I think there's a parallel to running long distances. You just stay the course. And I'm really big on watering the grass where I'm at. It's easy to look around and think the grass might be greener somewhere else. But I really believe that, my wife is... my wife for a reason. My kids are my kids for a reason. Like the job I have, I'm here for a reason. I was called to do this. And so I put blinders on and I think, how can I be the best I can be? If you're always trying to aspire to new things, man, you wake up and realize, wow, I'm impacting a lot of people. And to me, that's a really cool responsibility to have that role.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, 31 years is pretty amazing. I mean, that's definitely not the standard anymore. It's not normal. What keeps you staying, right? And so for those of you who don't know, Ron, as the last several, was a bookseller. We sold books door to door for years. And so that's how I know Ron, how I've known him for so long, and why I just admire him so much because he's been through that. But I mean, you've spent 31 years at this same company. What keeps you there? Why are you staying there? I know that
Yeah,
you said the grass, but is there anything else that kind of keeps you excited about working there?
alignment with principles. I think to me, like it's even being choosy about the friends and the people we spend our time, right? We can't help but be affected. I mean, I'm no different than any one of your listeners. Like we all get affected by the people we spend the most time with. And if I'm working with people that are selfish and just it's all about me and judgmental and labeling and this and that, I fall into those traps. And I try each day, each week to think, okay, how can I keep myself in a space where I'm less prone? And so, thankfully, my company, Southwestern's a very principle guided company. And man, we mess stuff up all the time, just like every company. We have a bunch of dysfunction like everyone. But ultimately, you got a group of people that love to work together. They're coachable, they're hungry. There's a lot of humility, and that rubs off on me. And that's why I've never really looked around. I'm more excited than ever about it. I mean, honestly, for me, I feel like, okay, I'm forward thinking. Not a lot of rear view mirror kind of space here. It's more like, okay, what do the next 5 years, the next 10 years look like?
I think a lot of what you're seeing is like culturally, it's just been every leader following has just kind of had that same kind of mentality. So Southwestern's culture has always been that way. You got other companies, people on this call, they don't have that. They didn't come into it. They didn't come into it and the culture. How can they build that same culture of this, how do you find yourself to be around people where the company you're at if there is a culture that's just not conducive for that kind of success? I don't know. Does that make
Well
sense?
said. It makes perfect sense. And I'll get pretty passionate about this because there's a fine line between setting myself up for success and being in the right environment that brings out the best traits in me, not the worst traits in me. Now that said, I need to take ownership. Let's say I have fallen into a space where my coworkers, my leadership doesn't have the right integrity that I hoped for, et cetera. Well, then the CEO mindset comes into play where, the old, if it is to be, it's up to me. Like, you know, every now and then it's raining outside. I still have to choose joy. The stock market's down, a pandemic has hit or whatever the thing is. And I'm not going to let my family's joy or fulfillment be swayed by whoever's elected to office or
Mm-hmm.
whoever my company's. So I want to do everything I can to be in the right environment. And that said, if I find myself in not the right environment for the moment, I'm still going to make, lemonade out of lemons kind of attitude.
Yeah, I love that. That's one thing I always learned is what are three great things about this. So when you're in a situation, if you can ask that, if you can answer that question, if you can give yourself three good reasons about any situation, I mean, you are well on your way to being a problem solver and keeping your attitude high. I would be remiss if I didn't ask this question as a fellow bookseller. Uh, you were number three in production for sales for the entire company, what, 164 year. So you've got some serious sales chops. But was what's the biggest lessons that you learned selling books and maybe even leading students to sell books that you think might still apply today? I'm sure there's a bunch. I mean, I know there's a bunch. So
Yeah. I think a couple, number one, resilience, like the whole who's next attitude. And it is just really wore on me. And I thankfully learned how to embrace that at a young age and not carry things with me. So resilience of how to bounce back quickly was a key one. More on a technical sales thing, it was curiosity. I just love to listen. I love to learn about people. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners, most salespeople love to talk and they just love to talk about their product and this and that. And we believe that the ones that ask the best questions and listen effectively oftentimes make the biggest difference. And I learned at a young age how to not talk, how to just ask questions and listen. And then the quality of the question, the quality of tell me more. What did you mean by that? Huh? And then whenever you do actually speak, there's purpose in those words. There's brevity and there's purpose. And that's something I learned at a young age was just not how to drivel on, but how to speak with purpose.
That's great. I think this makes me think of some of the better leaders. Others may not think about this at the time, but that's probably one of the traits they have. They're really curious and they ask a lot of really great questions. And then somehow you're like, gosh, that person really gets me. It's because they've mastered the art of, keeping their mouth shut and listening to them, right? And that's something I could apply to my personal life and as well, too, is listening more.
Oh, any of us that are dads, moms, spouses, business people, I still mess it up. I catch myself often with my wife, like, slow down, just listen. Come at this from a place of curiosity, not judgment. Yeah, that's a good reminder. But thankfully, I had good mentorship at a young age that helped me with it, and really rewired beliefs where I just learned how to love to listen. I love to learn about people. I love to understand what it is that makes other people tick, and that's a belief system that has been strengthened.
And I think it's a really good trait, and why you're so successful at your job as an executive coach, because you can't diagnose or offer any sort of solution unless you really understand where they're coming from and what they're doing and what their needs are and what their challenges really are. And that only comes with really, really good exploratory curiousness or good questions. So, or at least that's one of the big things that help. So, I've done some marathons, right? And I've done some triathlons and an Ironman and, distance races in that form I think are great. You've done ultra marathons. And what are they? In 50, 100 mile? That's typically the ultra. It's like a 50 or 100. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's technically anything more than 26.2. So they usually start at 50K. So a 31 mile, but like you said, a lot of the common distances are 50 mile, 100K or 100 mile distances.
Yeah, I know I was able to kind of be part of one of the races that you did several years ago.
Yeah.
Which was really just awesome to be kind of there in that last part, which was just...
You were more than part of it, man. That was my first ever 100 miler, and you ran the last 10 miles with me. You were my pacer. And so for whatever that's worth, like that was really special to have you there with me, man. I mean, I was in some low, dark places then.
Yeah, I guess that was a good time to have someone like me show up there.
Exactly.
You made it easy for me. Your pace was perfectly good for me. But what is it about these, right? These extreme distance, because you've done many of those now, and you also do, week long hiking excursions and trails and the Grand Canyon rim to rim. What is it about these extreme distance races that really appeal to you? What is it about those?
Yeah. A couple things. One is I just really love fresh air and scenery and nature. And it's like, I believe like God's given us a pretty cool earth. And to me, it's not about the metal or running on the concrete to beat someone. It's more like I want to get in, around Mount Rainier or in, like you said, the Grand Canyon, whatever those beautiful areas are, and just to get to experience. I find that perspective returns. I have had a tendency to lose perspective easily in life. And when I get out and run, I just breathe, usually no headphones, can just listen to my heartbeat, kind of get my thoughts right, my head right, my heart right. And I come back a better dad, a better husband, a better person. The other part is it literally breaks me. I just feel quite fragile and insignificant when those happen, when I do those longer runs. And there's something about still completing it that gives a different type of confidence afterwards.
You've had some relatively, I don't want to say like life-threatening, but serious injuries that happened as a result of some of these. How do you bounce back from that? And what is your attitude in that situation? I mean, you're going into these, that that's a possibility and it's happened. And then you come back the next year, you do it again. I mean, that's an awesome trait. I have that I think I have a similar mindset when I broke my collarbone in the first Ironman or triathlon. And I came back the next year and completed it because I just had to finish it.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on, knowing the risks, why do you still do it? And then knowing that you've already experienced the pain and then you come back and do it. Like, what's going on?
On a small scale, it's an example to my kids. I want to complete things the best I can. I want to, a lot of what we talk to whether it's my kids, I have 3 teenagers in my house, or clients or coaches that I work with. It's doing things that are hard, that test you, and being able to follow through and complete. And I mean, life is going to hand us a lot tougher things than some sort of a running race. So, but learning how to complete that with the right attitude and kind of the mental battles that you go through, then when the real challenges happen, health issues, family issues, like truly challenging life issues, I feel like you have a little bit of a thicker skin, a little bit more of a willpower to get through things, a little bit of a different perspective. Maybe you're not as rattled as easily as I would have otherwise been.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. I think you're touching on that. Is like, are there other, like you're drawing a parallel and a comparison to, how this is affecting you in the personal side, but can you see any parallels to draw between your ultra marathon experiences and the sales world or in the
Yeah.
leadership realm?
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Preparation. The times where I've messed up most is when I go into it with ego and I want to rely on talent and I don't prepare effectively. Now, like you just said, leadership, any business situation or running, I usually fall on my face, get humbled, and I'm like, what the heck? I knew better than that. And I come back at it with hopefully more wisdom next time. So number one is preparation, really not taking for granted that I need to be nutritionally prepared, mentally prepared, physically prepared, dot the I's, cross the T's kind of thing. That's number one. And then number two is having my why strong enough because the storms will happen. Like it's just inevitable. The storms are going to, in Seattle, we had that bomb cyclone a few months ago. And I was amazed at all these incredible trees that were falling in the trails. And then there were other trees that were still standing. They had strong roots, withstood the storms. And to me, your listeners know when I have that why, that purpose that's deep, I will withstand life's storms when others may fall.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I love that. That's a great kind of analogy and parallel.
And when I have fallen, I'm the same tree that has fallen easily in storms because of my mistake, but thankfully now I come at it from a different place and the roots are stronger.
Yeah. Well, and even when you do fall, you have whether it's gotten thicker skin, you've wizened, you've got experience, you have the tools at your disposal mentally, physically to bounce back faster. Also, because you say you're humble, I'm seeing your ability to go, I see that I made a mistake here. And I understand I made a mistake, but I can pivot and I can change and I know what to do because I've been there before. That's cool. And so let's talk a little bit about leading a team and recruiting, because this is one of your major roles is bringing in the talent.
Yes.
Right, and your company keeps growing, getting bigger and bigger. And I remember years ago when I was teaming up with you there, it's just expanded and you are a big part of that. And so one of your strengths that I see that's helped you achieve, I think, so many things is your attitude, right? Your mentality when facing those challenges. You've talked a little bit about it, and your ability to also coach others to manage their emotions, to manage their attitude. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about this, when it comes to managing your emotions?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't mind at all. Man, I'm working on this. I just think it's such an important topic that we underestimate. I think even in a space where I study this is so much of my job is to study this and live this. And at the same time, I've barely scratched the surface. So I'm still working on this daily and weekly and excited to work on it I just think the crystal clear awareness of what's going on inside of me, my head, my heart, and how can I influence those feelings to get myself in a more effective state. And then I'm able to, like I talked earlier, listen more effectively, have more curiosity, ask the right questions. And you all know people don't care how much I know until they know how much I care. So people are left with the feeling, hopefully, of like, man, someone genuinely cares. Sincerity, there's an authenticity there that people don't quickly forget. And then thankfully they give grace quicker. So when we're leading teams, that's going to stay with our people where they're able to give grace. They're able to kind of push further and bring it. Maybe that brings out the best in them. And then with recruiting, hopefully it's an attractive trait where retention is better, obviously, because people feel like they matter, they're being heard, they're being listened to. And then I just think it's evident when you see someone that's joyful in what they do, it kind of attracts other people that might want to do the same.
And I want to be around that. I want to be around this person, right? One thing that you have with, like, you have this level of integrity and authenticity and sincere desire to help someone grow and be better, that are interested, those who want to do it, you're willing to do that. And you really, really attract those people to you. And they want to, I want that. I remember watching Mort Utley on stage via video. And I remember going, I would love to do that someday, because
Yeah.
he gave me a feeling that this man, I'm only watching him on recording, and he passed away, but this gentleman seemed to really, really just genuinely care about the success that I will have in my life and the impact that I could have.
And think about it, brother. That's 30 years later. You're still remembering that. That is exactly what I'm talking about.
I mean, I just have a little chills. I still think about the moment. I remember having the moment. I go, I want to be a speaker like him. And then, and then 20 years later, I'm finally doing that, which it's just pretty impressive. Is there any other advice that you would be willing to share for someone who's new to sales? So a lot of the people who are going to come to this, they're going to be relatively new, who are in this community. What advice might you give them as someone who's new to sales to thrive and succeed in their business or businesses?
Yeah. I the first thing I'd say is be a student, like love learning. One of our biggest belief systems has to be around that I'm a student of the game forever. There's no amount of volume or revenue or profit that's going to ever make me think I can cross my arms and sit in the back. And that is ridiculous. Ego and arrogance and pride will attack you like crazy, and it brings out the ugliness in humans. And so that is the first thing I would commit to is, feed your mind that I love to learn. I crave knowledge. I just appreciate, because then whether it's skills or techniques, systems, strategies, creativity, like you're always learning new things that'll differentiate you in the marketplace. There's a lot of competitors, and whatever we all do, there's other people out there that do it, similar things. So how do we differentiate ourselves? Yeah, marketing can help. Yeah, a flashy website can help, but I'm not going to rely on that stuff.
I mean, I'm evidence. I mean, my website is not nearly as impactful as the posts I put on LinkedIn or anything, at least at this moment, right? And so
Yep.
It's true.
And so I think that, and you're a student. I always think of you that way. You've always had a humility about you. Whenever I'm around you, you ask genuine questions. You love to learn. You take notes. So whether it's reading books, whether it's podcast, but investing in you somehow is such a trait. I mean, just because we're coaches, all of our coaches have coaches. Last year I had an EQ for executive coach. This year I'm going through a different level of ICF coaching certifications, and I'm learning a ton. And I'm so excited to keep learning. And so that's probably the biggest foundational thing I'd say is shadow other people, learn other people. There's no human you meet that you can't learn and take away something from. And that diminishes the ego quite a bit.
Well, this is a good segue then. We're talking about, learning, right? You've taken a lot of your knowledge, kind of the first, half of your life. I think it's in this book here. And I mean, I can see that you've got 5, 6, 7 other books in your brain there that could come too. But I'd love to talk a little bit about redefining possible and what made you decide that, because there's a lot of people go, I wish I could be an author. I wish I could do that. And then they don't. And so what made you decide, gosh, I want to do this book?
Yeah. Well, there's two things. One is legacy and another is multiplication of impact. Worst case, when we're here and gone, I want my kids, my grandkids to know what their dad stood for. Like if that book didn't sell a copy and just my kids had it, and hopefully that speaks to their dad. My grandkids someday, I don't have any, that legacy of where people, I just feel like that's number one by far. Number two is, the way I would like to define wealth is impact. Like I think of who the lives we touch, the lives we affect, the lives we impact. Ultimately, that's what brings the biggest wealth in our life, the joy, fulfillment, etc. And so these traits in the book are basically, or principles, are kind of the things that multiply that impact. And so I just love breaking belief barriers. And so that's where a lot of the book comes from.
That's great. Yeah. And in the book, right, this is actually because you talk about impact. You open early on, I think it's even in the introduction, where you talk about and share your formula for life. You have vision plus faith plus impact equals redefining possible. I think that's a great setup. Would you mind sharing a little bit more about that philosophy? Vision, faith, plus impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy to. So the whole vision piece. So, we will get what we focus on, right? I mean, if your listeners say, you know what, I want to be a little better with my budgeting or my nutrition or my social media time, or so we start the whole book with a very foundational topic of how does a human concentrate more effectively, eliminate distractions, block out naysayers, and truly get clear on the focus. When we focus with more clarity, and then we take responsibility, we bring in more ownership and responsibility. That helps us have a more sustainable vision, right? A vision that doesn't just sound shiny, but it's a vision that is sustainable and unwavering. And so, and then the next part of it then is working on our confidence, unconditional confidence, not this fake, false, conditional crap, but
I can do it. I can do it. I can do it.
Yeah, I'm talking about deep rooted, true, comfortable in my own skin, not trying to be something I'm not. Confidence. That with constantly rewiring thoughts or beliefs, because we're always going to be a product of our beliefs, that helps us have a higher, more unshakable version of faith. And so you talked about the vision plus the faith, right? Equals the impact we're going to make in this world. And that's the whole redefining possible.
That's great. I know you're going to have a massive impact. You already have. I mean, you've impacted my life. That should just be enough, right? But no, you are a massive impact on people's lives. And I just can't wait to see you keep doing your thing, man. And I'm glad to know you. Not just because you're so successful, right? You're so successful in your career. You set your mind to something. And it's not like, I know you've been through challenges. I know that you get knocked down big time, right? And especially when you were first starting out, you got humbled like crazy early on, right? And I know you still do, but not to the degree early on, but you have figured some things out about you how you work and how, the impact you want to have, and you've just applied it so what seems just like seamlessly into your life, and I just admire you so much for that. How do you, right? You've got this great kind of business model you have and team that you've created, and you've got just such a great organization. You're such a successful salesperson and leader. Great. Awesome. If your personal life was a wreck, that would not mean nearly as much.
Right.
And so I think for anybody who's trying to make it in sales or in leadership, if you can't, you got to make it in your personal life too, and that will affect the quality of your business too. And so, I think I'm not talking around it, but how do you do that? How do you balance? Because I think you've also done such a good job of balancing your personal life and how you are so present with your family. And then, when it comes to work, you're so present with your work. Like, how do you balance both the personal and the professional and do it in such what I would consider an excellent way?
Man, well, thank you, brother. It's actually, that's a lot of the root of where that book came from, is hearing us humans say, man, I can either, this next season, I can really devote to my fitness, or I can devote it to my business. I can really lock in my finances and this and that, or I can be that more present dad. Or it was a lot of either or mentality. And so that was a lot of the root of this, is battling back. It's not either or, it's both. It's how do we redefine the way we think as to what's possible? And I really believe in example. Like, it would be quite hypocritical of someone, me as a dad, to tell my kids, these principles of planning your week out, being prepared before your academics, your athletic stuff, your social media stuff, and then me to be a hypocrite and not be an example for them. And same thing in my profession as, coaching and consulting. So I think, to me, the intentionality of how we start a week is so big. How we plan kind of pillow to pillow the minutes, and really cherishing those minutes. Like, I've only got so many minutes in a week. So where's my email time? Where's my networking? Where's my workouts? Where's my date night with my wife? Where am I just relaxing, doing nothing? Where am I running? Where am I fitness? Planning it all out, having some accountability, and then creating strong boundaries so that people don't get me off course. I can follow through on my plan.
When is that planning happening though, Ron? Is it typically on that Sunday night or Monday morning or Friday? Like, when do you think is like your wheelhouse time to plan that?
There's a personal thing on Sundays where it's either right before dinner or right after dinner, depending on my kids' schedule.
And you've worked that out with your family and you with your, so make sure that they understand that's an important time.
Yeah, Desiree knows, like, before I go to bed Sunday night, that's where I kind of button up the plan. And then that's calendar integrity. That's the last part of this then is I really want to do my best. I get it. We all have fires. We all have things that unavoidable things that happen, but those are usually pretty rare.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to dial in the plan, and then calendar integrity makes me honor the minute. So if I say I'm going to make dials from 9 to 10, if I say I'm going to, whatever the thing is, I don't want to shortcut that. I want to try to honor the minute and be as specific as I can about the plan, and then build that muscle, strengthen that muscle of how I follow through the plan.
You find it gets easier? It might not get, every week presents its own challenges, but when you stay disciplined to that, you find that gets easier over time to kind of continue to make the good decision and stick through the calendar. Because people, I say that I'm guilty of it. This is like Jim Rohn says, listen to me, but don't follow me too close, because I might tell you something that next week I just screw up on that same thing I've been trying to tell other people to do. But you make mistakes, but I don't know if I'm going to ask the question right. Do you feel like it's easier the more you do it and you keep living within that kind of discipline?
Yeah.
It gets easier over time. It's still hard, but it gets easier to kind of make the decision.
You got it. I really do. As long as the belief is aligned with it. We can short-term manipulate anything. We can put Band-Aids on crap. Anybody can do something for a day or a week or a month. That's why there's so many 30-day diet type things. But we know consistency always wins. So how do we sustain this? That's where we rewire the beliefs again. I know I've mentioned that a couple times. So I believe strongly that I plan my week effectively. I believe strongly that my family supports me to have strong boundaries around my plan. So as long as the beliefs are aligned with the action, then it gets easier. Yes.
Yeah. I'm just imagining the people listening to this call where they have, especially if they're like a leader and they've got literally 74 things on their plate that they need to be doing, and how do they do it all, and how do they manage it? And in the tech space, it's easy to have back-to-back meetings, double booking, all that sort of stuff. And you've got this massive calendar. How do you do it all? How do you stay true to the times? Anyway, so I can imagine in sales, same thing. I've got scheduling calls for picking up the phone and making prospecting calls. But I need to do this last email and finish it. I know prospecting time is right now, but let me just finish this. And 20 minutes in, they've bled into their call time. And then they're like, well, I might as well take up. It's just so many excuses. How do you stay to that time? I feel like we're talking more about this because I think this is also a challenge that I have. There's so many things I want to do. How do I stay disciplined? And this is for
very
others
relatable.
too.
I think it's very, I think we all have had procrastinator tendencies. We call it creative avoidance, where that I have had a tendency to do that. So is everyone. But man, I'm getting better at it. I'm growing, and it's giving ourselves grace. There's no dang human perfect at this stuff. But if I go around labeling myself a procrastinator, yesterday's actions will be today's and tomorrow's. My past does not equal my present and future, though. I have had a tendency to be bad with money, but I'm getting better at it. I don't want to walk around saying I'm bad with money. So I'm differentiating past tense versus present and future tenses, and how we word language matters. How we frame things really matters. So pay attention to the words and how we label others or ourselves. And then we start to realize progress. Like, okay, come on, I'm getting better at this. Let's go.
And then your brain starts looking for those moments of even the smallest things. Oh yeah, see, I'm getting a little bit better. I started on time today. This is great.
Happy. And
I get a little bit better. There's
no progress not worth celebrating. And I think sometimes we work hard to get progress, and then we don't even enjoy it. We just, so slowing down, taking a minute. That's why I run with no headphones usually, because I like to try to take stock of how am I doing? And that's gratitude time. For me, I can pray, I can appreciate, however your listeners, maybe you journal, maybe you do something, but notice those little areas where you're progressing, and they will show up more often.
Yeah, that's good. That's a great one. I want to talk again, staying on that topic of balancing personal with professional. I know your wife, Desiree. She is extremely successful in her own right, and she's just so driven, and I just admire her so much. And I've worked with her with my Wembley the Pug series. She's just really so good at kind of that branding material, and she's just so good. And then she also has another health and wellness, side of her life, and she's just. How do you support the success of your spouse to help her? I know that the success she's experiencing has some small way been affected by how you are successful and how you are with her. Is there something that comes to mind? How do you support each other as spouses in in each other's success?
I mean, again, for us, prayer, like really, lifting each other up. I mean, whatever your listener's spiritual beliefs are is personal, but that's our personal. And honestly, kind of getting on the same page on Sunday nights, having regular date nights where we can just kind of download and talk about how can we support each other with the kid duties or the home duties. And the last thing I'd say is, we've committed to going to a marriage conference at least once a year, kind of thing. Like investing in our marriage, just like I talked earlier about investing in yourself and your own growth. Same thing. Just because last year our marriage has felt really on point doesn't mean we're protected from future challenges. And so we're already thinking about, okay, in 2025, what are some different, we can go and just prioritize each other and invest in each other. And how can I be better for her? I'm not going to say, how can she be better for me? That would be bad.
But she's
how can I be better for her?
I know that she thinks that for you, though. How can she?
Hopefully, but you never know. Yeah, but that's where the teamwork comes in.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, it's just fun watching you both be so just on fire for each other's success. It's just cool. It's cool to see that. Well, shoot, this has been great. I think this is probably a good time to kind of wrap up. We could talk a little bit more. I'd love to have you back, obviously. But the best way to get your book, for those who want to get it, is Amazon. Is that the best way?
Yeah, Amazon's great, or just the title, redefiningpossible.com is great as well. Both of them are great.
Right. I know that you're an executive coach. You help others succeed. You help others thrive, and it's in you're not it's just not business. I mean, I know that I did a lot of coaching. It always ends up being personal too. And so for those who would love to maybe learn more about what you do, maybe even reach out about getting some sort of coaching, how would someone reach out to you if they want to maybe learn more about you and what you do and how you might be able to, and your team might be able to support?
Yeah, man, really easy to find. LinkedIn's probably an easy one. I believe I'm the only Ron Alford in Seattle. So, LinkedIn, obviously Instagram's great. Any of those places are good. Or that website I mentioned, redefiningpossible.com. Any of those are fine. And you're more than willing to throw my email in the show notes and all that as well.
Any last thoughts before we wrap?
Man, I guess doing this with people, it's funny talking to you because it's like, to me, this is inspiring of doing life with buddies that you love growing together. And so that's probably the biggest thing. We all know this truth, but just because we know it doesn't mean we're practicing it. And so that's probably my last biggest thought is frequently auditing not only who are the humans I'm spending the most time with in person, breaking bread, happy hour, etc., but what are the podcasts I'm listening to? What are the lyrics of the music I'm listening to? Books I'm reading? Like that stuff is all programming me. Good or bad, I don't know. Like just auditing what you're around, because that stuff makes us more generous, more patient, more proactive, more resilient, or it makes us the opposite.
Yeah.
That's it.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to Juice League's fantasy football draft weekend. That's going to be great. Yeah. And hopefully we can set up some time soon. I know that as a Dodgers fan, hopefully you want to go to the Mariners-Dodgers game here. We can go hang out there too.
Man.
Doing life with best buddies. So I appreciate you, Ron, so much. Thanks so much. For those who reach out to Ron, he's just a fountain of knowledge, and he's just such a good person. He'll treat you right. Stay tuned for the next Ace show for the next week, and I hope all of you, may you ace your life.
Thanks, David.